be answered in here to be answered in the SCIF. So thank you again for your willingness to make time for that. I'll now recognize Ranking Member Crow for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a debate that is often raging on the Hill about the trade-off between making deals to return hostages or the wrongfully detained, under the understanding that the United States should not leave people behind, versus the notion that making deals might incentivize folks to detain more Americans. So I would love your views on that issue, and whether you think we should continue to try to find ways of making deals when necessary to get our people home, and the impact of us stopping that policy on your jobs, and how you think we would address that if we were not to approach deal making.
Ranking Member Crow, I hope you don't mind if I jump in and take that
please.
first. These are always hard decisions. I think you take a case like what we had to do in Russia or what we've done in Venezuela. We actually spend years sometimes trying to divine what the other side wants, having very tough conversations with them. At times we come up with options that we present to the other side that are either given a yes, no, or a maybe. And as we struggle to get through this, at times you'll find that it's going to be that one thing that's going to make this trade come home. Either you do it or that person doesn't come home. And in some of these cases, it's turned out to be a person-for-person trade. In some cases, like Venezuela, for example, we've brought home well over 15 people for the trades of 3 different people. The 2 people on one occasion and one Venezuelan on another has resulted in the return of multiple Americans. To an extent, it's always unpalatable because the decisions are hard, but really the alternative is those Americans don't come home. But in doing this, we have very vigorous discussions within the State Department, the interagency, and we even asked the intelligence community to opine to get a sense that if the United States returns someone who's held by the U.S. to their home country as a part of a trade, we want to get a sense of what level of danger they present to the United States and its partners and allies after their release. In the cases that we've made the decisions, we felt reasonably comfortable that the person going back would not have some sort of residual threat to the United States and our partners and allies. And though the deals are tough, again, it brings Americans home. Why do the other side usually ask for criminals who've done some pretty evil things? It's hard to determine, but I do know that at the end of the day, we value the individual and we get that individual back. They might value the hardened criminal or drug trafficker and they get that person back, but an American goes home to their family.
Any other thoughts on that?
Thank you, Ranking Member Crow. I'll just add that this is something that we think quite a lot about, and one of the ways that in working with Roger that we try to support the efforts is through our travel advice. The travel advice is meant to provide unbiased, up-to-date information so Americans can make good decisions about their safety and security abroad. We recently added an indicator for countries that do participate in wrongful detention so that Americans at least can be aware. Again, there aren't that many countries that participate in this, but where there are, we're trying to make sure Americans are aware before they travel.
Mr. Mann.
Sir, the SPIA's office has a lead role in wrongful detention, but for hostages, we too, the HRFC as well, puts out advisories through our outreach to businesses, faith-based groups, and other members to travel advisories to warn them of such travels so they're not taken hostage or detained abroad.
Okay, and with my remaining time, there's often a misunderstanding between hostages and wrongfully detained and what will set off a wrongful detention determination. Would one of you be able to just provide a very quick high-level synopsis of the differences of those two and what tracks one case in one direction versus another?
I'll see if I can be quick in case someone wants to jump in. So essentially, a wrongful detainee, that's someone that's taken by a nation state. For example, Russia, China, Iran. A hostage is someone that's taken by a terrorist group. Think ISIS, think JNIM, or something along those lines. In terms of the wrongful detention, information comes into the State Department and we sort through it and look for these indicators of wrongfulness. Oftentimes that information comes from the embassy forward, but it also might come from family members, the intelligence community. the media. As that information comes in, we start to build a case and try to create a picture to determine whether that's wrongful or not. And if the information and taking a look at the totality of the circumstances surrounding that case indicates wrongfulness, we send it up for the Secretary of State to render a decision. Rod, you might want to cover the hostage side of the house.
And by wrongful, you mean that there isn't actually a legitimate reason for somebody to be detained, that they haven't committed a crime or something within that country or area? Is that accurate?
Ranking Member Crow, sometimes they actually might have done the crime, or there might be some ambiguity. We're not entirely sure. But in taking a look at the Levinson criteria provided us by Congress in the 2020 Levinson Act, we're able to kind of wrestle with that. So even though someone might actually be guilty of something, or there might be some ambiguity, it could be the way that they've been treated, the fact that they didn't have fair trial guarantees, the fact that their human rights or their fundamental rights were violated. In the totality of those circumstances, it might start to give the feeling of wrongfulness, and that's when a case would go forward. And
So
once
it
someone's
could be,
determined,
even if there is an underlying crime or act, it also includes process. If there isn't a legitimate process as well, that could cue off the wrongful detention determination.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And once someone's determined to be wrongful, at that point, the whole weight of the U.S. government can start advocating for that person's return. Prior to that, prior to wrongful detention, the cases stay in the Consular Bureau, and Assistant Secretary Rena Bitter will manage that case. And I don't know if you want to talk about the cases that are not yet wrongfully detained.
Sure, I'll just highlight one thing, although Roger covered it quite well, and I do want to give Roger a chance to weigh in. When somebody is wrongfully detained, as Roger says, it's the weight of the U.S. government really advocating for their release. If somebody is not wrongfully detained, if they have committed a crime, if they're under the totality of the Levinson circumstances, under those totality of the circumstances, there's no indication that they're wrongfully detained, then what we're doing is advocating for the fairest treatment under local law and for their well-being and for the best possible treatment that they can obtain.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'm out of time. I thank the chairman for the additional minutes. I yield back.
Absolutely. Chair now recognizes Representative Moran.